and welcome to our webinar on how to eat more fiber. I'm Bettina Jones, a registered dietitian with Corewell Health, working in the lifestyle medicine department. And with us today is Chef Lauren.
Hi, everybody. I am a chef with culinary medicine here at Corewell Health. I teach a lot of our family kitchen classes working with our families. I also have a background in museum education, so I love these fun educational experiences like this. And I would say that food is my love language, so I'm so happy to get to share this food with you today, especially if you're in a cold, wintry place like we are here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So today we're going to be cooking some gumbo, and we'll also make some Snickers bites. So I hope that you're ready and that you are looking forward to cooking along with us today.
So, Chef, we're cooking gumbo today. Tell me, what can someone do with this recipe if they have some dietary restrictions?
Sure. So in our gumbo recipe today, our recipe calls for using some whole wheat flour as a thickening agent. I myself avoid gluten, so I'm going to be using chickpea flour today. Now, when you replace an ingredient like that, there are certain properties in wheat that are not present in other things. If you are trying to do gluten-free baking, all of those ingredients like the rice flour, those things don't have the same protein components that wheat flour does, so they do act differently. So it's not quite the same, but there are other things you can use. You could use a rice flour. I'm using, like I said, a chickpea flour. So there are options out there. And the internet is a great source of info if you need a place to start with all of that.
So I'm looking around today and we have lots of great tools out here that we're going to be using. Tell us, what's your favorite kitchen tool? What's your favorite gadget?
It's a great question. I think primarily a very sharp knife is one of your best friends in the kitchen. It makes work so much easier if you have a very sharp knife. A dull knife makes it harder to prep. It makes it more likely that you might slip and cut yourself. So a really sharp knife is key. Another one of my favorites is what's called a bench scraper. This is really helpful for gathering things up and transferring them to your cooking pot or to another prep surface. Another of my favorites is what's called a portion scoop. This one is a 1 ounce or a 2 tablespoon portion scoop. It makes it really easy for things like when we're making those Snickers bites, we'll be dealing with a nut butter. If you want to scoop some nut butter out of the jar and then move it to a different place, you just push the handle to release it. It's a lot easier than scooping into a measuring cup. So this is also one of my favorites.
And no more digging it out with a spoon or some other tool that wasn't really meant for that. It makes it a lot easier. Good deal, Chef. Thank you. I really like the bench scraper. It keeps me from dulling my knives because I grew up just taking the knife and scraping it off the board. And most of us do that at home cooking, but having a bench scraper really helps with that. All right, Chef. So we're talking about fiber today. Most of us keep hearing that we need to eat more fiber, but today we want to talk a little bit about the whys and hows of getting it into our diet, right? So we know that fiber helps us to stay full. It helps to clean our colon and helps reduce the risk for many diseases that we're seeing today, especially those chronic diseases of our time. And this recipe has fiber in it. Some of the foods in it that we're going to find that are rich in fiber are all of those vegetables, right? So the more vegetables we add to a recipe, the more fiber. If you happen to be cooking a grain on the side and it's a whole grain, which stay tuned, we'll talk a little bit more about whole grains later. But if it's a whole grain, that's going to increase the amount of fiber that you have as well. All right, Chef, are you ready to get started?
I am so ready.
All right, let's have at it.
Okay, so let's take a look at our gumbo recipe first. Also, if you're cooking along with us, we'd love to see you say hi in the chat and let us know that you're working alongside us. So our gumbo recipe here, we need some olive oil, we need onion, bell pepper, and celery, garlic, of course, and then that whole wheat flour or another flour substitute if you'd like to use a different one. The seasonings we're using today, smoked paprika, thyme, black pepper, and oregano. We need some veggie broth, kidney beans, fire roasted diced tomatoes, or whatever diced tomatoes you have access to. I'm using some frozen okra today because that's what's available to me, and then some low sodium soy sauce. So I'm going to start at the bottom of this list and organize myself going up. I've already got a few of the things gathered here to make our time go efficiently. I've got some, I actually have tamari. This is the product that I'm using here. Tamari is a wheat-free soy sauce. So if also you have an issue with wheat, you want to look for that. Wheat is a surprising ingredient in soy sauce. This one is also a low sodium one. That can be helpful for some people. I have, as I said, my frozen okra. I've got some fire roasted diced tomatoes. I've got these kidney beans. I'm going to go ahead and drain and rinse these kidney beans. This is a low sodium product, but I know that a lot of times kidney beans come packaged also with extra sugars and things in there. So I'm just going to go ahead to rinse that extra salt and any other ingredients that are in there. These kidney beans are one of our high fiber ingredients today, aren't they, Bettina?
They are. And so, Chef, are you saying if I just have regular kidney beans on my shelf, it's okay to go ahead and use them, even if I'm trying to reduce my sodium?
Absolutely. You can go ahead and use them. We know that rinsing a can of regular salt added beans for a minute under running water removes a large portion of that sodium and will make them a low sodium ingredient for you.
Sure does. Well, thank you.
Right. Instead of dripping water across my workstation here, we'll just transfer like this. All right, so I've got my beans. I have my 4 cups of low sodium vegetable broth there. A really convenient thing is those jars of bouillon paste concentrate that you can keep in your refrigerator and scoop out and add boiling water to whenever you need broth. Very easy, really cost effective. Next, let's measure out our spices here. So we've got some smoked paprika, black pepper, oregano, and thyme. Here's my 1 teaspoon of oregano. I feel like oregano shows up in lots of different cultural cuisine. It's really nice, herbaceous flavor component.
It is, and this smoked paprika is kind of new to me. I've just been using it in, say, the last year and a half or 2 years. What can you tell me about smoked paprika and what it lends to the dish?
Sure. So again, a lot of cultures use paprika, which comes from a sweet pepper, typically like a red bell pepper type of flavor profile. But then the smoked paprika, if you smoke something, it adds this whole other savory element to it, and especially something like gumbo, where we are using entirely plant ingredients. This is going to add another savory element that I think can be really helpful if you're trying to make the step to add more plants to your diet. As much, umami deliciousness as you can add is great.
It helps you not miss that kind of meaty flavor in there.
For sure.
All right, Chef, we have a couple questions.
Great.
Will the recipe still work without okra, or is there another vegetable that can be added instead of okra? I'm getting the feeling maybe this okra is not this person's favorite.
That's fair. Okra is not everybody's cup of tea. It does have that textural component that doesn't work for everyone. It's a little slimy. It's got those seeds in there. So if you have problems with textures, you might not want to mess around with okra. That's totally fine. You could go ahead and use something like a cut green bean, I think would work. Pieces of zucchini would work. Really, any other vegetable that you really like. We're just all about adding some more veggies in here. Another green veggie would be great.
Broccoli, would that work?
I think that could be delicious. We talk a lot about the different nutrients that are present in the different colors of vegetables. If you've been a part of our challenge, you've probably seen a little bit of that. So I think there's lots of possibility here. I'd say go ahead and use what you like and what you have for sure.
Okay, another question. What's the difference in light and dark beans? So I've seen those too. We have light red kidney beans, dark red kidney beans. Is there any difference?
I truly don't know scientifically if there's a difference. I always assume that there are different varieties of beans. I do know, where did I put my can? I'm going to take a look here. So these are dark red kidney beans. And it's just beans, water, sugar, salt, and firming agents and preservatives. So there's no other coloring in here. There's nothing artificial. It's just the color of the bean. For our purposes, you could swap out and use any bean that you liked in this recipe.
And for our intents and purposes, the fiber is going to be the same.
For
sure. That's the important part today.
That fiber, 5 grams per serving.
Yes.
Beautiful. Yeah, right, I'm going to grab my veggies over here. Did we have other questions we needed to address?
See, I think someone else was typing a question in there.
Great.
We'll hang on for those. So our recipe today has about 6.5, almost 7 grams of fiber. And then if you add, a half a cup of brown rice or something like that, then you further increase the amount of fiber that you're getting with this meal.
Beautiful.
We're really aiming for about 30 grams a day. And just wanted to point out that plant-based foods are where we're going to find our fiber. Animal products don't have any fiber. So they digest slower, they tend to sit in our colon. And we want to make sure that we've got fiber-rich foods, especially with those animal products that we're eating. So trying to get about 30 grams of fiber. How do you do that eating plant-forward food, right? beans are going to be a great way to do that. A cup of, say, navy beans is going to give you about 19 grams of fiber. Our vegetables are going to have tons of fiber. So if you're a person who likes collard greens or something like that, you can get 7 grams of fiber from a cup of greens. So think outside the box. It doesn't just have to be your rices and grains, even though those are, of course, really good foods, but your vegetables and beans are going to give you fiber as well.
That's amazing. I'm thinking about all the fiber that's probably in this celery right now.
Yes.
All right, so we are looking for about a cup of celery. I probably have more than a cup, but that's totally
The
fine.
more the better.
All right, so there's our celery. We need some diced green bell pepper. I'm going to show you real quick my favorite way to deal with a bell pepper because it's all roly-poly and weird shapes. I like to cut off both the blossom end and the stem end, and this usually makes it really easy to see where all the seeds are on the inside so that then you can place it on a flat surface. We're always looking for a flat surface when we are dealing with vegetable prep. And then you can slice down around the ribs and the seeds and wind up with some really nice, what I call pepper planks. And then all of your seeds stay together, and this is all of your waste. This and the stem, that's the only part of the pepper that you're wasting then. And then you have your pepper planks, and then the top and the bottom, and all of this is usable.
Very nice. I mean, almost no seeds there. I see 1 seed on the board.
Oh my gosh,
So
one
seed.
one seed. All right. There we
So
go.
very nicely done.
You could, if you prefer, use a different color of bell pepper. If bell peppers are really not your thing, you could swap out for another veggie again, like we were saying before. If you want to add some more spice to this recipe, you could introduce a jalapeno or a serrano or something else. Really feel free to customize recipes to your taste. I think sometimes it's nice the first go through to make it as written, but then after that, I rarely ever exactly follow a recipe. I'm always customizing for my tastes and my dietary needs and what I'm feeling that day. And I think that's one of the really beautiful things about cooking.
Very good. All right, chef. So I'm looking at this recipe, and this is quite a bit of chopping, right? And dicing. What do
Oh,
you
yeah.
do when you come home from work on a busy day and you want to have a plant-forward meal that's really going to be high in
Oh my
fiber? What's
gosh.
kind of your go-to?
Bettina, that can be such a challenge. And I know so many people struggle with that situation because you're hungry then and you don't want to wait. And it does take time to prep all the things. So that's when you need to help out your future self sometimes. You know, things like utilizing grocery delivery can be really helpful. Taking a little bit of time at one point during the week to do some veggie prep. Like what I'm doing right now, I could do this times 4 and then have it in my refrigerator and available to just pull out and saute. And very quickly, I could have a skillet supper or a soup. So I think with just a little bit of planning, you can help out your future self and make it a lot easier.
So the key sounds like it's planning and prepping. I know if I cut an onion and the recipe say only calls for half of it, I'll go ahead and cut the whole thing. Anyway, I have the board out, I have the knife out. Why not go ahead and, like you said, help out my future self, right? And have that extra diced onion, sliced onion, or peppers, or cilantro, or whatever else I'm cooking.
Absolutely.
Also, kind of deciding to use the same ingredients in multiple recipes during the same week is also helpful. Like if you're cooking a grain for this recipe today, right? Say you chose to cook rice or farro or some other grain, cook enough so that you can use it again during the week.
And I'm finding actually that this onion that I cut is twice as much as I need for this recipe. So here we go. I have helped out my future self unknowingly, and there's extra onion for later on. All right, so we have all of our ingredients prepped now. So I'm going to turn on this cooktop here and start cooking. I've got 3 tablespoons of olive oil that we're going to let heat up in this pot. Do you want to talk to us at all about olive oil as a sidebar here?
Oh, well, yes. Doesn't mean fire, but yes, that is our oil of preference. Here at Culinary Medicine, we prefer it because of its makeup, trying to get away from all those saturated fats, getting more omega-3s in our diet. So olive oil is going to be our oil of choice. There are some other oils that we may use if we're really doing high heat cooking, like avocado oil is something that have higher smoke points. That means they take a higher temperature before they burn. But typically, we're looking for an extra virgin olive oil.
And it's delicious and multi-purpose.
Yes.
It's good for sautéing. It's good for dressings. It adds really nice flavor.
And I think I'm going to swap sides with you. How about it? So you can get in front of the
sure.
burner, and I'll
Sounds
move
great.
over here and get out of the way a little bit.
You can stand
How's
over
that?
there and admire our frozen okra. All right, so we are going to add the onions and celery and bell peppers to this pot.
Now this is sautéing or sweating the vegetables. Tell me why do that instead of just throwing it all in with the liquid and bringing it to a boil?
Yeah, so I've got a pretty high heat here, and this is going to cook out some of the water that's in these vegetables. It's going to soften them. So this is another place where you can do things to your preference. If in your finished dish, you want to have some vegetables that still have some bite, you could cook them less at the beginning stages. But if you want everything to be really silky and soft, I would cook things longer at the beginning. Also, when you're cooking, when you start to brown things a little bit, that can add a really nice flavor. You start to caramelize some of the sugars, the naturally occurring sugars in the onion, and that can add a really nice flavor. So multiple reasons why we start this way with our sauteing our veggies at the beginning.
Good pro tip.
And the recipe does say 5 to 10 minutes. But again, this is just a place for you to get the veggies to the point that you want them to be for your finished dish.
Well, this is a great place for us to take a minute and talk a little bit more about those whole grains, right? And fiber. So I have a slide I'd love to show you. And this is going to be the picture of a grain. So we talked about coming home at the end of the day and, you know, you've quickly got to get a meal on the table. Why would you take the time 40 minutes, say, or 45 minutes to cook brown rice versus white rice, right? Say, look, I don't have time for this. So this is just a little incentive. I want to show you, this is what a grain looks like when it grows. There are 3 parts to the grain. The outer side of the grain is the bran. The middle is the endosperm. And then there's the little germ in the middle. The outer part, the bran, is where we get the most of the fiber that's in our grains. The middle, the endosperm, is where we have those starchy carbs that we utilize for energy, protein, and a small amount of vitamins and minerals. And then there's the germ in the middle, and that's where the B vitamins, more protein, minerals, and those healthy fats that we need for healthy skin, nails, and hair. When a grain is refined, the outer hull, the bran, is taken away. And so that means the majority of the fiber is gone. And it's that fiber that makes the grain take longer to cook. So in order to get to your white rice, or even like sugar, getting to white sugar, all that part is removed. But you know what else is removed? The germ. The germ is removed. So we lose those healthy, fatty nutrients that we need for our nails and skin and hair. And those are removed because it extends the shelf life of the grain. So now our grains can stay on the shelf longer. So when we get an enriched grain or a bleached grain, we remove the fiber, the healthy fats, and a lot of the protein. So that's just a little incentive to say, hey, maybe I want to learn to put my grain in an Instapot so that it cooks quicker and begin to switch out our grains from those refined or enriched ones to whole grain. There are lots of benefits. They help to reduce the risk of many chronic diseases, cancers, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases. So we really want to begin to shift our diet to incorporating more of these whole grains and getting a lot more fiber in our diet.
I think that's really interesting to learn how when most of the grains that maybe you have grown up eating have been stripped of a lot of their health properties and how there are these distinct parts of the grain and how they each have benefits to our bodies.
They do.
So interesting.
Yeah. In our fast-paced society, you know, we've kind of learned to process things to make things happen faster, and it kind of becomes the normal.
Yeah, so that brings up the point that it really takes a little bit of a mind shift. If you're trying to change the way that you're eating to achieve certain health benefits for your body, you really need to shift your perspective and your philosophy around food a little bit to really embrace the fact that you literally are what you eat, and to devoting some more time and energy to that, because that is building your physical and mental body.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, Steph. All right, so we've got onions, bell peppers,
Mm-hmm.
all in there
Color in there.
sauteing.
So that's starting to soften up. So I'm going to move to the next step here. We are going to add some garlic next. I
My
know
favorite.
garlic is many people's favorite ingredient. I got to grab one of my bowls here and move my extra onions, my future onions, right?
Mhm.
Great. And we can deal with this garlic. It's super easy if you prefer to use a jarred garlic and already minced garlic. That is a totally fine choice. Sometimes it's nice to just have whole bulbs of garlic around, especially if you like garlic a lot. It can stay fresh for a pretty long time. It does come, with this papery skin on it, and that can be difficult to deal with. So there are a couple of ways to get that papery skin off. They make these little silicone tubes that you can put it in and kind of roll it around in there. I've seen those, and that softens it up.
Okay.
You can take your knife and gently crush the garlic clove a little bit, and that can help to peel it. This is a really tough one. There we
Okay.
go. All right, and that can help to loosen that papery skin so you can peel it off. You could also, if you're not comfortable putting your hand right by your knife blade, you could take the edge of your cutting board and put that garlic clove under there.
Oh.
And push it under there too. All those things can kind of help to loosen up that papery skin.
That's a real good one for our junior chefs too.
Yes, for sure. Yes, I really love when kids get involved in the kitchen, as you might imagine. My own kid is 16 and he helps out. He really likes to be trusted with a knife, so he wants that job. But all those ways that you can help minimize risk, I think, are very important. Thank you so much, my compost bucket. Yes, so I'm a big fan of getting small people in the kitchen and teaching them from the beginning some safe ways to handle knives. We're getting some nice caramelization. You can see all this steam happening here as all this water is evaporating. We're concentrating all the flavors in our veggies here as that water is evaporating. We're getting a little bit of caramelization on those onions. So I think we're going to have some really nice flavor in just a little bit.
All right, we have a couple questions over here. Let's see. I like to use the rice that is microwavable and pre-cooked for convenience. I even found a 90-second quinoa brown rice from Simply Nature. Is this a good idea, or do these products have less benefits nutritionally? Well, that's a really good question.
That's a great question.
So this is where we go into that part where we say you have to read the labels, right? If it's brown rice and quinoa, sounds great. Sounds like it will have all the fiber. The concern is going to be what else is in that package, right? So going to the actual ingredient label and seeing what additional things are in there. If it's just quinoa and brown rice, great. But if it has quite a bit of sodium and those other things, then you want to be a little bit more concerned. But just because it's in a microwavable pack doesn't mean that it has less nutritional benefits.
Yes, that is a great point, how it's really easy to get a lot of information by learning how to read a nutrition label. That's a very worthwhile endeavor.
Yes. And I always like to say the front of the package is not the nutrition label. You have to turn it over and see what's actually in the bag or box or container.
Can you tell us a little bit about things to be looking for on nutrition labels, maybe using this can or the okra as an example?
Yes, I can. So let's start with the okra, right? Frozen vegetables. That's a question we often get. Are frozen vegetables just as good, right? I say sometimes, especially when it comes to fruits, they can actually be better, right? Because if they're flash frozen at the peak of ripeness, they're going to have a much better flavor than fresh ones that we may get in December in, say, Michigan, right? They're just not near as flavorful. So the concern is going to the ingredients and making sure that it's just okra like this bag is, or it's just strawberries, and it doesn't have added salts, saturated fats, or sugars. In the syrup, they have syrups and things like that. So just making sure that it's just the whole ingredient. When we're looking for high fiber foods like breads, looking for whole grains, we're looking for one of the first three ingredients on those labels to be whole, sprouted, or cracked grain. It doesn't have to be wheat. It could be oat. It could be barley. But we just want to see one of those names in front of it: whole, cracked, or sprouted. And then we know that it's going to have the whole grain in it versus it saying enriched or unbleached or something like that.
Packages can be sneaky
They
sometimes.
can. And just because, sometimes on the front of the label, it'll say with whole grains. And so that means if you read the ingredients, like way down at the bottom, like the last ingredient, it'll say whole grain flour. So like they threw in a little bit so that it's with whole grains. The ingredient label is organized by the thing that's in there. The most is first and the least is last. So we want the whole grain to be up in like those first three ingredients.
That's really important to know and so helpful. When you begin to start to know just a few things, it can open things up for you. Okay, so while we were discussing all of that, I went ahead and added the garlic that we had chopped up and also the flour. And when I added the flour, I made sure to stir everything around so everything got coated pretty evenly with the flour. We can start to smell the garlic here.
Smells
Smelling
lovely
really
here.
nice.
I hope your home smells this good too.
I sure hope so. If we can give you that at least, then I feel pretty good about our work today. So next we're going to add the spices. So we're going to have even more delicious flavor going on. You do want to be careful with the garlic. I think we've added it after we have cooked the other vegetables so that it doesn't scorch and burn, because that adds a very bitter flavor. So we're just gently letting this saute a little bit here. And before it starts to get browned or caramelized or any of that, we're going to move on to our next steps. So here are all of our seasonings. Stir all of those around evenly. And we just want those to toast just a little bit. Toasting spices can also bring out some other flavor components of them. There's so many different ways to treat all of these ingredients. Maybe you're super familiar with an onion in a raw aspect, but you haven't caramelized an onion before. Maybe you use paprika all the time, but smoked paprika is new, and toasting spices is something you've never done before. So I think there's a lot to learn and a lot of new exciting culinary adventures.
Nice little roux going there. Can we show them that on the camera? Can you tilt your pot? Can they see that? So they can kind of see what your roux looks like.
Yeah,
Oh,
so you
there
can
we
see
go.
we're starting to get some of this toasty stuff on the bottom of the pot, and we're going to be able to scrape up all of that flavor in just a little bit when we add our more liquid ingredients. Let's take a look at what's coming up in our recipe. So we've toasted this. So now we have our broth, our beans, our tomatoes, our okra, and our soy sauce.
Okay.
So I'm going to actually add these tomatoes first because the acid in the tomatoes, if you've heard the term deglaze before, the acid in these tomatoes and the liquid is going to help scrape all the flavor bits up from the bottom of the pot so that we can reincorporate that into our whole soup here.
I love that. That sounds really fancy. She's now deglazing the pan, and you are now deglazing your pan.
All right, so we've got that action going on. I'm going to add the broth and the beans. So are there different kinds of fiber, Bettina?
Oh, yes. Okay, so there's insoluble and soluble fiber. And we often don't talk about it because we don't want to confuse people any more than with all the information that we give. But one fiber helps to bulk up your soups and one keeps you regular, right? So those get really, really important when we have people with different bowel issues, like maybe constipation or diarrhea. But in general, we need both of them in our diet. Most of our plant-based foods are going to have both of them in it. And so we always say if you're eating the rainbow, if you're eating a variety of fruits and vegetables and grains, then you're probably getting as much of them as you need, each of them. So we don't worry too much about it. It's hard enough sometimes just to focus on getting 30 grams of fiber.
But I think the beautiful thing about eating whole plant foods is that all of those components, like with the grain diagram, you can see all of those components are already included.
So we have another question here. I don't know, Chef, this is going to be a tricky one.
Uh-oh.
Can you please give a reference on where to buy a good sharp knife like the one Chef is using today?
Oh my gosh.
Well,
Well,
you can better even just give us some things to look for when we're trying to get a good knife.
And truly a good knife doesn't need to be an expensive knife. I have purchased knives at Meijer, which is our local superstore here. I think it's just most important to care for your knives. So I'm going to tell you all kinds of things about knives. This particular knife that I tend to use a lot is a Japanese style chef's knife. I like a blade that's about 8 inches long that gives me enough space to work with. If you're used to using a really small paring knife for cutting all these things, it can be really hard to cut a whole bell pepper because the pepper is wider than your blade is. So that's one thing I look for, the blade that's going to be long enough to handle the things that I want to cut. This knife is beveled on one edge, so one side of the blade is straight up and down, and then the other one comes down to an angle. I think most knives that people are familiar with using are beveled on both sides, so it's sort of a V shape. That makes it really easy to buy those honing tools, if you've
Yes.
seen them, where they sit on the counter and you can run your knife through them to hone it and keep it really sharp. When they're beveled on both sides. I think that's a really helpful thing. I've also found there are different places you can take your knives to have them sharpened in a machine, which if you've never done that before, when you get your knives back, you will be amazed.
Really? Okay, I'm gonna have to do that. I sharpen
Yeah.
mine at home, and I usually wait till it's too dull, and it's like, okay, I've got to get it sharpened, and I do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds like something that we ought to try, huh?
It's great. You'll start cutting things and go, oh my,
Ooh.
this is so easy and so fun, and you want to cook all the time.
Okay. Thank you, chef.
All right, what I'm doing here now is just turning the heat up and bringing everything up to a boil, and then we'll let this simmer for about 30 minutes. And during that time, we'll move on to our other recipe together.
All right, and I think you kind of just answered our next question. It says, I've made bruise and add broth and still seems watery. Does it take time to thicken, or maybe I need more flour?
Sure, there's a whole, I'm sure the internet could help you find this out. There's a whole proportion of how much, typically it's butter and flour that you're using, how much butter and flour, either by weight or volume, do you need to thicken a particular volume of liquid. And there are different degrees of toasting that you can do for that roux. I think usually you start with the roux. You start with toasting that butter and flour and then letting it darken to the point that you want before you start adding all your other veggies.
Okay.
So if you have a particular recipe that you're using and you're not getting the thickening that you're looking for, you could make sure you start with that roux. And then also do a little bit of research to find out what quantity of roux do you need to thicken the quantity of liquid that you are adding to it. And it does take time to, you do have to let it boil and simmer so that that thickening action can happen.
Okay. So over the next 30 minutes, ours will thicken up and kind of be like
Yeah,
right where we want it.
Stewiness going on for sure. All right, so we're just starting to get to a simmer, so I'm going to let that go a little bit longer before I turn it down.
But everything's in there.
Everything's in. Let's check our list just to make sure, because
Okay.
sometimes I think I'm done and I've forgotten to add something. All right, so we did our onion, bell pepper, celery, added garlic, our flour, all of our seasonings, the broth, the beans, tomatoes, okra, and soy sauce. Yes, it's all in. If you wanted to cook a grain to go along with this, now would be a great time to start your rice, your buckwheat, your farro, your any of those beautiful whole grains. Do you have a favorite whole grain that you might like to eat with something like a gumbo?
We kind of lean towards farro in our house.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like brown rice, but it seems like some of the other members of my family eat farro better. It's just a little bit bigger grain. It tends to be chewy, and they just seem to really like it. So if you've never tried it, I'd say give it a try. It seems to be more and more common and readily available at common supermarkets, especially for us here in the Midwest. So yeah, it takes a little bit longer to cook, but we really like it.
Great, thank you. I think there are a lot of fun things to explore out there if you're open to a culinary adventure.
There are. All right, chef, we're making Snicker bites.
Yes.
That's a dessert food. Is that going to be
Yes.
good for us?
You know what? I will show you the components that we're going to be using, and you
Okay.
will understand why this is becoming one of my favorite snacks.
Okay.
And just clean up our garlic here so we don't mix garlic and chocolate,
Ooh.
because that would be no fun.
Well, I used to say I like garlic with everything, but that kind of makes me think maybe
With
I don't like it with
everything?
everything. Maybe not. I think chocolate and garlic, right? I have to draw the line there.
All right, so we got fresh cutting board. Okay, so we are using medjool dates, which are these big, I was going to say juicy, but they're not juicy because they're dried. But big, I don't know, can we use the word meaty to describe the texture? They're
think
really
so.
chewy and delicious. These dates, they're very sweet naturally. A serving of 2 to 3 dates has 4 grams of dietary fiber. They also have potassium, iron, and calcium in them.
Yay.
So that's very nice. For this recipe, you can use any nut or seed butter. We would recommend looking for a natural one without salt, sugar, extra fats, and all those things added. I've chosen an almond butter. This almond butter has got 2 grams of fiber per serving, so
Yay.
we're looking okay. Also, protein, a good serving of protein, iron, potassium, calcium as well.
Okay.
And then some dark chocolate chips. I bet I have the bag for these.
Oh, yeah.
And I bet they have some nutrients. Okay, so these are 70% dark chocolate. I know some people can't maybe handle quite that dark. It's pretty dark chocolate. But I think go as dark as you can. Look to reduce those added sugars as much as possible to keep this as healthy a snack or dessert as possible. 5 pieces has 1 gram of fiber, which is pretty amazing. 5 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces.
Wow.
Fiber.
Wow, look at all the fiber we're getting in our dessert.
And 5 grams of, or 4 grams of added sugars.
So it's about a teaspoon of sugar that you're going to get from these chocolate chips. And that's kind of the benefit of going with the darker chocolate, is that we're going to reduce the amount of added sugars that are in there. It just makes it all the better for us.
So these Snickers bites you can do a couple different ways. So I will show you. Oh, good. We're at a boil here. I'm going to turn down to simmer. And we can just let that go. Took a little while to come up to a boil because of the frozen okra lowering the temperature, I think.
Okay.
All right, great. So now our gumbo is set. We're going to let that go. These dates. Okay, so some of these are whole dates and some of them are pitted, I think. So here's a whole date. It has this big pit in the middle. If you have whole dates, you can just remove. You can split the dates and leave them sort of like taco shape if you wanted and fill them. You can pull them apart and have 2 halves, and then we'll fill them with this nut butter and this chocolate. I've seen people take a bunch of dates and open them up and smash them all out together in sort of a one layer, and then put some nut butter and some chocolate on it and freeze it. And you can cut it into little bites. You can stuff the dates and then drizzle melted chocolate over them. So many different ways you can make this snack. So I'm just going to stir. Sometimes with this natural nut butter, the oil has separated. You can keep it in your refrigerator to prevent that from happening again after you've opened it and stirred it. You can just open it, give it a little stir. I've had people say, oh, I just pour the oil out. But if you do that, by the time you get to the bottom of your peanut butter, it's very stiff and very hard to spread on your toast or whatever you're doing. Okay, so with my split date here, I put that almond butter, and then I'm just going to add just a few chocolate chips to the top. And so we call this a Snickers date because the date is like the caramel of a Snickers bar. The peanut butter, almond butter, sunflower seed butter, whatever you choose, is like those peanuts. And then the chocolate is like the chocolate coating. So this is not exactly the same as eating a Snickers, but it'll give you sort of those flavor components in a much more healthful way that's going to provide some benefits nutritionally for you.
Yes, definitely. And it has that chewy sensation that you get from a Snickers bar, and that kind of makes it really nice.
Do you have any other sweet recipes that you think are really healthful or much, much better than something that you could otherwise be eating that you like to feed your family?
I really like our energy bite recipe. And if you go to our website, the Culinary Medicine website, we have a whole batch of recipes there, and we have an energy bite recipe that's on there that's really lovely. So it has lots of fiber in it. It doesn't have added sugars, and so I really enjoy that recipe.
That's a great thing to bring up, that we have a lot of recipes on our website. So if you do go to, I'm sure you've been there before, the Culinary Medicine website, there's a link that says recipes, and they're organized in several different categories. So if you're looking particularly for a sweet thing or a soup, you can find those things by category. We also have a pretty robust Facebook page. If you like to share things that you're working on, if you're looking for updates about classes or things we have going on, we've got a lot of info there too. We always have a lot of exciting things
We do.
going on.
And Mariah just put the link in the chat. So feel free
Oh,
to
great.
find that there and
Thanks,
go out
Bettina.
and see what you can find.
We'd love for you to share with us um, even some images of what you're cooking today. If you're cooking with us, we'd love to see your gumbo or your Snickers bites. We'd love to hear what you think. I feel like we're always looking for feedback. If you are looking for a particular kind of dish, if you're having a hard time filling a particular um, kind of food desire,
Hmm.
maybe you don't want to be eating, I don't know, your family recipe for XYZ all the time. You're really looking to find a way to make that work for you more.
Hmm.
We'd love to hear about it and help you out.
Hmm.
It's one of my favorite things, finding
Yes.
ways to make something that people love them back, I
Yes,
guess.
exactly. To make our kind of favorite recipes just a little bit healthier. And it can be as simple as swapping out some of your oil for applesauce, swapping out maybe some of the eggs for flaxseed eggs and
Hmm.
things like that. But I think a lot of times people just don't even realize that they can upgrade their
Yes.
recipes. And the more that we begin to cook from scratch, the more controls we get. So even like our beans, most of us like to keep some canned beans on the shelf just for when we really need them and quickly. But buying dried beans are going to be more economical and we get to control everything that's in them, right? So we don't have to add salt to them at all when we hydrate them. So just learning to do things like that can really help us to make our food healthier for our bodies.
I know that you cook your own beans from dry. Can you talk a
We
little bit
do.
about what that process is like then? If I'm used to having a can of kidney beans on the shelf, what's the process I'm going to have to go through instead if I want to cook my own?
Well, the first thing is it takes a little forethought, right? So I have to think ahead of time. Okay, I'm going to use beans or I need beans. And so I do the quick method. I bring them to a boil, I turn it off, I let them sit for an hour, and then I rinse them. And then either I throw them in my Instapot
Mm,
for about 15 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes, and then let it cool down without, opening the valve, let it naturally
hmm.
depressurize, and they're ready to go. Or I then can them. And I think like our state, like MSU has different things on their
Yes.
websites about canning and safety, and you can kind of refer to some of those extension centers for more information on canning beans. But I like to keep them on the shelf that way. You can put them in the freezer also is another way. And then learning which beans cook faster. Like pinto beans are going to hydrate much quicker than red kidney beans will.
Interesting.
We know that our lentils only take about 10 to 15 minutes to
Hmm.
hydrate in a saute pan. So kind of learning which beans will hydrate quicker. And that Instapot has just become
Yeah.
irreplaceable when it comes to things like that. Because instead of it taking all night to get beans, I can really get beans in an hour and a half from dry to
To
table.
fully cooked. That's amazing.
Hmm.
I think that's another thing to think about too. What are the things that you are willing to invest in order to make that
Hmm.
cooking process much easier or more fun for
Hmm.
you? And it sounds like an Instapot really
Hmm.
changed things for your
It
cooking
did.
experience.
It did. I don't have that like, I didn't put the rice on, it's gonna take 45 minutes, or I didn't cook this grain or something when I walk in the door. I like
Mhm,
having a meal plan so I know what's coming up, but I
mhm,
can still walk in the door and put the rice on and know that by the time everything else is done,
mhm.
it's ready. I can remember days before Instapot where the food would all be ready, the family's ready to eat, and the rice is just still al dente.
Oh
It's just
no.
still a little too hard. So it
Mhm.
has really come in handy for us.
I would say not quite that stepped up, but a, a near a near appliance would be a rice cooker.
Yes.
If you are a kind of person that struggles to get your grains going,
Mhm.
a simple rice cooker, they're fairly inexpensive. Believe you can find them for around $20.
Ooh.
Um, you just set it and it does it, and you don't have to worry about is it scorching, is it too dry, is it too watery. For the most
Mhm.
part, a rice cooker is going to turn out your rice just right every time. And I know that you can also use them to saute veggies to a certain extent and make a little one pot meal.
Ooh.
You cook the veggies first and add your grains and then let it go. So
Nice.
I think there's some possibilities out there. There are a lot of different
Mhm.
tools and gadgets and things, and maybe we were discussing knives earlier. Maybe investing in a pretty good knife
Mhm.
is your investment that you're willing to make. Maybe that Instapot sounds like, ooh, that's going to be a game changer for
Mhm.
all of the dishes that I cook. So that's another thing to consider as you're going down your lifestyle, culinary, experimental journey, what are the things that you are willing to spend money on? What are those things that are going to be very impactful to your process and create some ease in your life around feeding yourself well?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So talking about ease and feeding our lives and busy lifestyles, I find that having a well-stocked pantry is really helpful. What are some things that we
Oh,
should
for
have on our
sure.
pantry shelves to help us be able to cook at home more readily?
Absolutely. Yes. So things like those canned beans or the dry beans, if you're willing to do that process, those whole grains, having some canned vegetables on hand. We were using those canned tomatoes today.
Mhm,
I think canned corn can be really helpful. Um, a lot of canned vegetables, the texture is compromised or there are other added ingredients. So
mhm,
that's when label reading comes in handy. Um, but I think that there are some really helpful things to keep there. Maybe jarred olives, if you like olives or capers, any of those pickly, briny things can add a lot of flavor.
mhm,
And they're also a vegetable and they're adding some fiber to your meals.
mhm,
We could talk about freezer things. We talked earlier a little bit about that frozen okra. Having those frozen vegetables and fruits on hand makes it really easy to make something come together on your stovetop or in your oven.
mhm.
What am I missing? What have we not talked about so far today?
I don't know, but I think like this gumbo today, I think
Hmm.
most of the ingredients could have been things that I had on hand.
For sure.
Because the okra came out of the freezer, I could have had previously chopped onions, bell peppers all in the freezer. And when you sauteed them and got some of the water out of them in the beginning, that would help to add that flavor and that caramelization to them. So I
Mhm.
think a dish like even today, it seems pretty fancy, but boy, I think we could do it out of a well-stocked pantry and freezer.
For sure. Yeah, I think you're right. Those spices, the
Mhm,
flour, the beans, the only fresh items were the garlic, celery, onion, and bell pepper.
mhm. And
Mhm.
many of those could have come out of the freezer if
For
we had
sure.
chopped them, like we said, like Chef chopped that onion today and had extra. So if she puts
Hmm.
that in a Ziploc baggie and pops it in the freezer, next time she's ready to cook, you have some
Absolutely.
frozen onion in there. Very nice.
Hmm.
All right, how's our gumbo looking?
You want to do a taste test?
Ooh,
That's
yeah.
another very important part of the cooking process. Tasting as you go so that you don't serve food to people that isn't delicious. So I have a bucket of tasting spoons over here. Don't burn your mouth.
All right. Hope everybody at home is tasting. And go
Mhm.
ahead and put something in the chat and let us know how your dish is coming along.
There's some really nice flavor. I like the little bit of heat that black pepper can add. Something can be
Okay.
almost spicy with just black pepper, which is something that I discovered kind of late in life. Like, wow, this is very spicy. Oh, it's only black pepper. Oh my goodness. I really like the smoky element from the paprika and the vegetal flavor from that green bell pepper. I
Hmm.
think all these elements are really nicely playing together. It was pretty good. I think I might add a little bit more smoked paprika and black pepper,
Ooh.
actually.
All right,
You can
chef.
go for it.
So you hear that at home, you can adjust it to your taste.
Absolutely. This is your creation. So take charge.
And you know what your family's gonna like and what flavors. You know, if too much pepper is gonna be too spicy for some, or um, what flavors they like.
Hmm. I'd be curious to hear people who are making some substitutions, some
Oh
swaps,
yeah.
how that's going for you, how you're feeling about your dish. So feel
Mhm.
free to let us know.
Substitutions. I'd also love to hear what grains you may be cooking to
Mm-hmm.
go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Helen has her hand raised. If you could put your question in the chat for us. Great. So have you ever frozen these Snicker bites just like they are?
Yes. Yep. I think that is a great way, again, helping out your future self.
Mm-hmm.
If you have 10 minutes to make a tray full of these Snickers bites, then you could put the whole tray, put them all in a container with a lid, put the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing in the freezer, or maybe package them in twos and threes and
Mm-hmm.
freeze them so that then you can have a little snack on the go.
Yes, I kind of like that. Just the idea that
Hmm.
I can kind of run in and kind of sneak a little treat, but it's really good for me. It's going to help
Mhm.
me meet my fiber requirements for the day. It's not going to add an exorbitant amount of added sugars, and I'm going to have
Mhm.
some nutrients.
For
We
sure.
read off that were in the dates. So
Mhm.
that's kind of a really nice hands-on kind of recipe that we can have. All right. So someone found purple rice.
Oh,
Ooh, that sounds
that's
good. New
fun.
colorful grain. Again, eating the rainbow, right? We know that the more different color nutrients or more different color foods we eat, the more variety of nutrients we want to
Yes.
get. Some surveys are showing us that it is more beneficial to our health to incorporate small amounts of different vegetables versus just eating lots of one kind. What does that mean? That means the person who says, "Oh, I like broccoli and cauliflower, and that's I get my 4 or 5 servings a day, but it's only broccoli and cauliflower." They're really missing out.
Mm.
Whereas if they eat a cup of this and a cup of that throughout the course of the week. So I love that purple rice. You're getting really good nutrients.
That's great. And that's really good information to know that if you think you got your thing and you eat your
Mhm.
same meals for 3 meals of the day every day, that you're really missing out on a lot of flavor, a lot of nutrients, a lot of health benefits.
Mhm.
That's really good to know.
Mhm. Can you use peanut butter for the Snicker bites? Yes, you
Absolutely.
can.
Our recipe is actually written for a natural peanut butter.
Mhm.
I just like almond butter better, so I use that today because
Mhm.
I was the chef today.
See that the
You're
chef
the
gets to choose.
So if you're the chef in your home and you want to choose that peanut butter, do it. Absolutely.
Mhm. All right. So plating presentation, right? That's always so important, chef. How
Hmm.
things look when we present them is going to make a big difference.
Yes, it truly does. So I say feel free to have fun with your plating of your dishes and your ingredients, the way you present it to your family.
Mhm.
That can really
Take a
add
lick.
some elements. All right, so we got our, thank you, Snickers bites. Take a look at our soup here. I'm gonna do one more taste, and then I think I'm just going to put some of that in a bowl too, so that
All right.
we can start snacking.
Yes, I want to get to taste it, but I want to wait until you have it like perfected.
Oh my gosh. What's perfect for me might not be perfect for you, Bettina. If you were the chef today, you might have made it
I
differently.
have made some different choices, but I don't think I would, Lauren. I pretty much love everything you make in our kitchen. So,
Yeah, I think this is pretty good.
all right,
I think
let's
we
go
should
for it.
get some bowls of this.
So, everybody at home, if you're ready to take a taste of yours,
I know we probably
do
haven't
that.
had quite our 30-minute simmer time, but probably close. I truly
Mhm.
was not paying attention to the time. I was just
No, I
having
think we're
fun here.
close enough. And I'm ready to taste. Like the smells, my
Great.
stomach is
All
just
right.
ready.
Here you
All
go.
right.
Thank you.
All right. Uh-oh. It's
Don't
pretty
burn
hot.
your
I
mouth.
know. I'm
Small
backing off
bites, small
now.
bites.
See. Oh, that's really good.
All right.
That's really good. And with our cold temperatures that we've been having here, oh, this is going to be really nice tonight for a good supper.
So if you like this recipe, this is going to be a good one for you to make maybe double the batch size
Hmm.
and then portion it into maybe a quart size container and freeze it so that you have some backup for, again, those nights when you're busy and you don't have a lot of time. And hopefully you can manage to take it out of the freezer, pop it in a pan and let it melt and warm up. And the
Hmm.
soup is ready while you're
love it.
organizing the rest of your life.
I love it. All right, chef. I can't wait anymore. I need to
Okay.
taste those
Yes.
those Snicker
Get in
bites.
there.
I'm going to take a smaller one. I won't take the big one, right? That's
Oh
right.
my gosh.
Oh, that's really good.
Mhm. I really love the really dark chocolate.
Hmm.
I think it's very delicious, and
Hmm.
I don't know, a milk chocolate for me is too sweet
Hmm.
now that I've gotten used to eating the
It's
dark
too sweet.
chocolate.
And with the date, you just don't need it.
Mhm.
The date provides so much sweetness.
Mhm. I know people that don't like dates because they say they're too overpoweringly sweet. So if you
Hmm.
haven't tried them in this way, maybe that nut butter will help sort of balance
Hmm.
that sweetness for you, and it can become the caramel element of your Snickers.
Hmm. Hmm. I really like that. And just a note on buying your nut butters. Again, the front of the label, the front of the package is not the nutrition label. Sometimes they'll say all natural, but then you turn it over and they have substituted oils in there,
Mhm.
things like palm oils. and things. We don't want that. We really want it to be just peanuts or just almonds in your nut butters. All right. We have one last question here. I don't know, Chef. Your Energy Bites recipe uses hemp seeds. I don't have any. What can substitute? Can she just leave it out, or should she try to put something else in?
You could leave it out. I do know that we have several different Energy Bite recipes. We have a chocolate chip peanut butter one. There's a turmeric one. There's a baklava one. So there are several different ones that you can try out. Hemp seeds have a lot of nutritional benefits. They also are pretty soft and creamy almost in texture. So they can add some really nice nutritional elements and textural elements. If you don't have them, you could just leave them out. Depending on what part of the recipe they come in at. If they're just mixed in with everything else, you could just add a little bit more of another nut or another seed or a little bit more nut or seed butter to help fill that out.
If you don't have any dietary restrictions, I challenge you to try them though. I really like the chewy nature of them. And again, they do have some really important nutritional value for you. All right, Chef. Well, everything you made today was delicious.
I'm so excited to eat more of this gumbo and more of these Snickers bites.
And thank you so much for joining us today for today's webinar on how to eat more fiber.
We hope you've been inspired to find and cook more recipes to include more fiber now that you've learned a little bit more about all the health benefits of fiber and how it can work for you. And we look forward to seeing you in our future webinars, our classes. We want to see you perusing our recipes. Let us know how everything goes on our Facebook page.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.